I'm Kelechi Onyike. I'm the MD of PODEX Associates. By incorporation, CAC incorporation, it will be May 2013. So that's the legal commencement. But we actually opened the office for business in January of 2013. It was always my dream to be an architect, right? So while I was in school, before getting into school, I used to do a lot of graphic design things like banners, stickers, things like that. So while we're in school, I did a lot of that. And at that time, the business name I used to use was Bricklayers. I liked the Bricklayers name, so I started using the Bricklayers for my own business. So I got to school using that name, doing a lot of things architecture students do. And then, of course, my best friend from secondary school actually, was in the same university program with me, Efanga.
Most of the creative things actually did start with Kelechi. Kelechi was the one who was the leader, and then because I found myself in the creative space too, and then I had, there were demands for either cards or writings and so on. So we just kept doing it, and it was like a little business. And fun joined too, and then it kept growing and growing. We
just said, as we leave school, we'll probably carry on, actually practice architecture. So it's also what we're doing in school anyway. So beyond university, after university rather, we continued using the name Bricklayers. By that time, we were not really formally registered. And at some point, we tried to register. Then it was registered as Bricklayers. You know how you go to CAC and you want a business name, and somehow they tell you that name is this or is that. So eventually, it was registered as Bricklayers Nigeria Design Services. We didn't like it that much anymore. So we just kept on with our careers, doing the things we were doing. But when it was time to kind of create a new identity, when we were ready to go into it full time, we decided to go with a different name. And so after much thinking, we thought Products of Design Excellence represented what we wanted to do. And so that's how PODEX now came in and replaced Bricklayers, and then became a legal entity because it was now registered. So we now went into proper registration, went in with the name PODEX.
Said Acatonis was happy to be the entity that would help them set up PODEX. We registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission, and we also drafted their initial shareholders agreement.
I joined the firm when we're still at Yusufa Bordering Road, that's close to 4 Points. And I think I joined at the time they had just moved into the building, so we had weird sitting arrangements and we had to go get lunch. So the office staff would get lunch, and then we had to eat in incomplete situations. So that was one of my fond memories, because we'll just pull a table up and all of us sit together. But Kale, everyone would just join together and we just patch up.
Remember when PODEX started? Well, PODEX used to survive by residential projects that used to bring in, money by, in piecemeal. It was quite interesting.
And so it's difficult to say there was one single incident that inspired it per se. It was just more or less years of preparation. I'd always dreamed that I would be able to practice architecture at the highest level possible. And so it was just something that when its time was right, we kind of knew it. In many ways, our values have remained the same. Our culture has been intentional from the beginning. So in those areas, I haven't really changed. But in terms of people, the people who have been in the team, people have come and gone. Different people have gone, but somehow we've retained the culture and the values. I didn't want anybody to leave. I just wanted everybody to be together like a family. But I think in the course of time, when one thing led to another and somehow people had to move on with their lives for one reason or the other, I would say I began to accept that that was part of what one will come to expect in a business, that there will be situations like that. And so that has kind of brought a challenge of being able to maintain a culture and a certain work standard, even if, the people who started it are not exactly the same people who are still in it. One of the biggest changes is moving from full-time working in the office space, to like a hybrid or at a point we were even working remote. During COVID, we had to work remotely. So the idea of working remotely was an idea that was being, it had been suggested to me a few times, and I had quite some apprehension about it, even though I saw potential benefits. But it was an idea we were beginning to think about. But it was like, okay, let's do it slowly. We had actually started doing it slowly, right? At that time, we were like, maybe people could take one day off and work from home one day in 2 weeks, right? But we went from that to just being completely shut down. But the fact that we started thinking about it made the transition easier. But having transitioned, after COVID, I realized that, remote working is probably a solution to some of the issues that we had in the past.
Most of our people were pretty much from the same school. Today, we have staff from different parts of the country in terms of school here working for PODEX, and it's been interesting to see people from other backgrounds bring in their own flavor to the work.
We've always been about team growth. I think that's something they've really invested in, like people, growth of young people. So most times where other companies desire to have like fresh or people with experience, PODEX was willing to invest in people coming straight out of school. So that required a lot of team work, a lot of one-on-one attention from the senior directors. So I would say in that way, PODEX, kind of like an Arsenal team, has churned out like really young, successful graduates. So I would say that's one way. And I think also the capacity and style of projects that we do. Like it's always people always want to refer, or people see the projects and want to be a part of what we do.
I think we've matured in our approach to design, our approach to a lot of issues. We've matured over the years.
Technology is always going to have an impact on every field you are in. I remember when I was still in school, AutoCAD was the main thing.
We went from CAD to BIM, and the firm has been able to embrace BIM effectively in delivering their design projects. It's also helped us to be able to properly detail certain aspects of the work that would have been a little bit more difficult initially.
When COVID happened, it sort of hit us suddenly, hit the world suddenly. But as a company, we had some things we do with cloud storage, where most of our files are stored online. So it was easier for us to sort of adapt during that period because everything had to shut down, but we could still go home, and then most of our files were sort of stored at a central location, and anyone could access and work on it. So it was easier to collaborate. And since that time, there's been like different things. Online meetings have come to stay, you get. So it's also one way we interact with our clients, where we communicate with them virtually. So you don't always have to be present in a particular location because people travel, different schedules and things like that. So it just makes it more open to meet with clients, to interact with clients. Likewise, also, like I mentioned earlier, we try to have capacity building sessions every month in PODEX, where we sort of pick topics in different areas, different sectors, and then we try to educate ourselves on those areas so that we can also sort of like adapt to higher qualities as a team, different quality standards too as a team.
I have seen how the architecture and the projects have evolved over time from when it was the really little projects, and how I've seen I follow the works of PODEX, and I see how it has grown larger over time, and we've seen buildings, significant buildings that have evolved from the practice.
Thankfully, over these 10 years, I'm seeing different parts of the things we dreamt about gradually come into play, come into peace. I still think there's still a long way to go, but I'm grateful for, looking back, I'm grateful for the journey, I'm grateful for what I can see has happened, within this time. So looking forward to what the future has.